The corridors of General Hospital hummed with an uneasy calm, the kind that settled just before chaos erupted. The return of Nathan West had been a miracle in the eyes of many. Maxie Jones had found herself smiling again, her heart daring to believe that her long-lost husband had come back to her. Even James, their son, had grown close to the man who looked, spoke, and acted like the father he had only known through stories and photographs. But Britt Westbourne couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Ever since her own return to Port Charles, Britt had sensed an odd distance in Nathan. He was charming, considerate, even familiar. But there was something slightly off in his eyes, something too calculated in his mannerisms. Her instincts as a doctor told her to trust facts. But her instincts as a sister whispered something darker. Late at night, in the GH lab, she sat with her laptop open, reviewing Nathan's recent medical file. His blood type didn't match the one from his original record, a fact that could have easily been dismissed as clerical error. Except Britt knew it wasn't. Nathan West had been O negative. The man walking around now was A positive. And that was just the beginning. Haunted memories came flooding back. Britt had spent years trying to escape the shadow of her father, Caesar Faison, a criminal mastermind who had orchestrated countless twisted plots across Europe and Port Charles. What if? Her heart raced. What if her father's reach extended even beyond the grave? Britt replayed surveillance footage from the day Nathan was first found in that remote cabin, unconscious, allegedly after months of being held captive. She froze the frame. The scar on his shoulder wasn't Nathan's old bullet wound. It was newer, clean, surgical. "This isn't you, Nate," she whispered. She couldn't ignore it any longer. There was a chance her brother's return was a hoax. Someone had gone through great lengths to create Nathan, to replace him. And Britt knew only one person who had the power, connections, and resources to do something that monstrous: her father. When Britt approached Maxie at the Crimson offices, the conversation quickly spiraled into emotional chaos. "Maxie, I'm telling you, something doesn't add up," Britt said urgently. "The man in your house, he's not Nathan." Maxie blinked, eyes flashing with fury. "How dare you? You disappear for years and come back just to say this? He's my husband, Britt. He's James's father. Do you remember how he used to quote The Sound of Music to you? How he'd hum Edelweiss when you were nervous?" Britt pressed. "Ask him to do that now." Maxie shook her head, trembling. "You're sick. He's been through trauma. He doesn't remember everything." Britt leaned closer. "Trauma doesn't change blood type, Maxie." The silence that followed was deafening. Maxie turned away, arms crossed tightly around herself. "You're wrong," she said, voice cracking. "You have to be wrong." But doubt had already begun to flicker in her heart. That night, Britt broke into the hospital's secure genetic testing lab. She swabbed a hair sample she had secretly collected from Nathan and ran a DNA comparison against the archived data from Nathan's original records. The results took hours to process. When the screen finally flashed green, Britt's hands trembled as she read the results. Sample inconclusive, no direct genetic match to Nathan West. Partial synthetic reconstruction detected. Synthetic. Her knees nearly buckled. This wasn't just an imposter. This was a creation, a manufactured being, likely the result of genetic manipulation or cloning. Something her father had once obsessed over. Dear God, Father, what did you do this time? The next morning, Britt sought out Jason Morgan. Of all people, he knew the horror of having his identity stolen, his mind manipulated. "I need your help," Britt said quietly, glancing around the Metro Court Cafe. "This goes beyond medicine. It's about Nathan." Jason frowned. "You think he's a fake?" "I know he is. I've got partial synthetic markers in his DNA. Someone built him, and if I had to guess, I'd say Faison had help." Jason's jaw clenched. "You think this connects to Brennan's network?" Anna Devane arrived just in time to hear that name. "What did you say?" Jason gestured for Britt to sit. "She thinks Faison's people made a clone. A replacement for Nathan." Anna's face went pale. Faison experimented with gene splicing years ago with Helena Cassadine. There were files about it hidden on Spoon Island. I thought they were destroyed. Jason's eyes darkened. "Looks like someone found them." Days later, Britt, Jason, and Anna tracked down a hidden lab outside of Port Charles, an abandoned facility once used by Victor Cassadine. Inside, dust and decay mingled with flickering lights and old bioengineering equipment. Britt's flashlight beam landed on a cryogenic pod. Her breath caught. Inside floated a perfectly preserved body, Nathan's body. Max's husband had never returned. Jason cursed under his breath. Anna clutched the wall for balance. Britt fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Oh God. Nathan's been here all along. So who's been living in Max's home? Back in Port Charles, Nathan began showing signs of instability. His behavior grew erratic. Mood swings, sudden flashes of memory that weren't his. He'd wake up screaming, calling himself Jonas. Maxie tried to comfort him, but her patience began to crack as the man she loved seemed to fall apart before her eyes. When Britt confronted him at the GH rooftop, he didn't even flinch. You know, don't you? He said in a low, mechanical tone. Who are you? She demanded. What did they do to you? He smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. I was made to love her. To protect her. But I was never supposed to remember him. Who? Britt whispered. The real Nathan. The wind howled around them as he continued. Faison made me. But when he died, someone else took over. Someone who wanted me alive to keep Maxie quiet. Who? Britt pressed again. He looked past her, eyes distant. Victor Cassadine. Anna's research confirmed it. Victor had continued Faison's experiments after the latter's death. His goal had been simple yet horrifying: to rebuild perfect soldiers using the DNA of heroes and villains alike, programmable, loyal, and deadly. Nathan's clone, or Jonas, as the files labeled him, had been implanted with selective memories to make him believe he was Nathan. But Victor had miscalculated. Jonas had developed a conscience. And now, that conscience was tearing him apart. When Britt finally told Maxie the truth, she expected rage, maybe even violence. But what she saw instead was heartbreak. Maxie sat on the sofa, clutching Jamesy's teddy bear, staring into space. So he's not Nathan, she whispered. He's a copy. A ghost. Britt nodded, tears brimming. But he still cares for you. Whatever they did to him, it's real to him. You can't hate him for that. I don't, Maxie said softly. But how do I love someone who isn't real? That night, Maxie confronted Jonas. His eyes glistened with emotion as she approached. I know what you are, she said. He didn't deny it. I never meant to hurt you, Maxie. I thought I was him. I felt everything he felt. I believe you, she whispered, voice breaking. That's what makes it so much worse. Jonas began to deteriorate rapidly. The synthetic structures within his body were failing. Victor's designs had included an expiration sequence to prevent rebellion. As his health declined, he asked to see Britt one last time. I wanted to be him, Jonas murmured from his hospital bed. He was brave. Kind. I wanted to make things right. But I'm just a mistake. Britt gripped his hand. You're not a mistake. You're proof that even in madness, there's a spark of humanity. Jason stood at the doorway as Jonas took a final breath and whispered. Tell Maxie. I loved her. Just like he did. Then he was gone. In a haunting twist, GH security cameras captured something strange days later, a flicker of light in the morgue where the real Nathan's body was kept. Anna reviewed the footage in disbelief. The body's hand twitched. It was impossible, yet unmistakable. Nathan's eyes opened for just a second, as if reclaiming a final moment of peace before the lights went out again. Was it a biological glitch? Or something else? A soul finally released after being trapped between life and the mechanical shadow of its existence? Maxie honored both Nathans at a private memorial by the river. She released 2 lanterns, one for her real husband, and one for the man who had tried to be him. You both love me in your own ways, she said softly. And I'll carry that love with me always. Britt stood beside her, silent, watching the lanterns drift into the night. I'm sorry for everything, Britt said. Maxie took her hand. You saved me, Britt. You gave me the truth, even when it hurt. For the first time in years, Britt felt at peace. Weeks later, as Britt cleaned out Jonas's hospital locker, she found a small USB drive labeled FASON, Project Continuum. She hesitated, staring at the name she'd spent her life trying to escape. Against her better judgment, she plugged it into her laptop. The file opened with a message in her father's unmistakable voice. Hello, my dear Britta. If you're seeing this, it means the first experiment was imperfect. But don't despair. The second model will succeed. This time, I've chosen someone far more useful, someone named Jason Morgan. Britt froze, blood draining from her face. Jason, cloned? She rushed to find Jason, but he was already gone. Anna informed her that Jason had taken off after a lead in Paris, tracking remnants of Victor's tech network. The message echoed in her head. If her father had created one clone, what stopped him from creating others? And if Jason was next, then Port Charles hadn't seen the last of Faison's terror. Britt faced a moral crossroad. Should she destroy the data, or use it to stop what might already be unfolding? Haunted by guilt and determination, she decided to take a risk, to stay at GH, to protect the people her father had once tormented, and to fight whatever dark science came next. She locked the USB in a secret safe, knowing the storm wasn't over. In the final moments, Britt received a mysterious package with no return address. Inside was a single photograph, a dark lab, filled with pods. And in one of them, Jason's face. A note was attached. Round 2 begins. V. Her hands shook. Victor Cassadine was alive. And he was just getting started. Months later, in a hidden European lab, a familiar figure stirred within a containment pod. His eyes opened, cold, calculating, yet unmistakably human. Nathan West, version 2, a voice echoed. As the pod drained, a figure stepped from the shadows, Helena Cassadine's clone, smirking. Welcome back, darling. It's time to finish what your father started. The unmasking of Nathan shattered every illusion in Port Charles. Britt's discovery had rewritten the definition of identity, love, and loss. It forced the residents of General Hospital to face a horrifying truth, that the line between life and creation had been crossed long ago. Max's grief became the town's reflection, a wound that symbolized both love and deception. But Britt's final decision, to stay and fight, marked a new era, one where science, morality, and family would collide again, in true General Hospital fashion. Because in Port Charles, no one ever truly dies. They just evolve.